Did I talk about cold eternity? I don't know if I did. Let me see. Okay. I don't like opening my old videos and looking at them. I barely tolerate editing videos. Welcome welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah. Let's talk about some of the stuff I've read in the past couple weeks. Last week, not this past week that just is finishing, but the week before last, I spent all of my time, pretty much, I finished one book quickly, and then I spent the rest of the time focused in and finishing another rather hefty book, so I didn't bother filming a Friday Reads, so we're going to do those two, and then this week was kind of a lot. It was kind of a lot for me. I read quite a bit, so let's get into it. So the first thing that I finished, like the day after I filmed Friday Reads 2 weeks ago, was Cold Eternity by S.A. Barnes. Now this is a horror science fiction book. I mentioned last week I was enjoying it, and I was. I like S.A. Barnes' horror quite a bit. I have her new Romantasy on my TBR, my e-arc TBR as well, so I'll be reading that. This is her third horror book that I have read from her. This might be my favorite, and I don't know if it was the setting or if she's just consistently getting better, but just for me, this one worked great. This is about, and I do not remember the main character's name, Katrina, maybe? She is on the run. Her parents are political figures, but also she was working for like a political movement, somebody in the political space, and she got caught up basically as a scapegoat for something that went bad. So she's on the run, and she decides to take a job aboard this ghost ship. All she has to do is press this button like every couple of hours, and it keeps the security, the check-in, from going off on the ship. And this ship is full of celebrities and really rich people from a couple hundred years ago who were cryogenically frozen, right? Like their whole thing was live forever. We'll wake you up when we can fix what's wrong with you, or once, the world is perfect. And they just float around on this ghost ship. But things aren't quite what they seem, of course, as always. And things get ooky spooky very quickly and stay ooky spooky. And I quite enjoyed it. My one complaint that I had about this was she had a experience with the ship's AI. There's some onboard AI with the ship, and she had experienced some like interaction with it when she was a very young girl. And then it continued when she returned to the ship. The ship like recognized her, the AI in the ship recognized her, and there was this weird dynamic between the two, and I didn't care for it just because of the nature of the AI, in that it was not, I'm not going to spoil it, but the nature of the AI made it really disturbing to see the interaction when she was a child to when she was an adult. That was my only complaint. That was weird. That was weird for me. But otherwise, really liked this. Thought it was fun. The ooky spooky parts really had me like, oh my god, what's happening? The first spooky scene actually had me gasping out loud. So that was pretty great for me. So the book that I spent most of last week working on that just was taking up all my time was Grave Empire by Richard Swan. I loved this. I thought it was fantastic. This has 3 points of view. We're following a young woman who is the not the assistant, but the junior ambassador to the merfolk of this world. We are following a man in politics. He's like a high lord. He is not a nice guy, but he is an absolutely fascinating guy to follow. And then our third point of view is a young soldier who has been shipped out to the front lines on this other side of the continent. So basically a jungle situation. It gave me very Heart of Darkness vibes, his sections did. And these three all are looking at the same problem, but a different facet on each side. And then they come together in a way. You start to see the interconnection, and you start to see the problem of what's happening in this world, and that is the Great Silence. And it is fantastic. Now, this is set in his other series. The Justice of Kings was the first book in that series, but like 300 years in the future, I think. So this is like a almost steampunk sort of situation. They have guns and boats and stuff, as opposed to straight like swords and sorcery. But there is magic. There is like sword fights and duels, that sort of thing. And it was so good. It was very complex. It had me very involved. And the sort of bad guy that we start to see, the figurehead of this really intense event that's happening, the Knacker Man. Oh, spooky. Let's talk about ooky spooky. I read a couple of these this past couple of weeks. I greatly enjoyed this. I think I don't know if I gave it a 5 or a 4.5, but it was pretty close. I am very excited to read the second book. I do believe I already have the second book on audiobook, which is how I read most of this. I read most of this on audio until the last 2 hours, and then I was so caught up in it, I had to sit down and actually just read it because I couldn't make it through the audiobook. I was so overly invested, like, oh my god, what's gonna happen. Fantastic, dark fantasy. Don't go into that to read it if you have any kind of a problem with things of a very graphic and violent nature. It's very disturbing. There is just so much going on in that, dealing with like the realm of the dead and people reaching out to the dead, and just it was so good. I really recommend it. So the next week, this past week that just happened, I got a bunch of stuff read. It was just a lot of a week. So let's go through those quickly. So let's do the one manga. I read Spy Family Volume 13, which I love this series. I'm trying to catch up. I was a bit behind. And Spy Family, for those who don't know, is about Lloyd, who is an agent for this one country that is at war with another. He is known as Twilight, and he has to create a family so that he can spy on the other country. So he recruits this woman off the street who he doesn't think, he thinks she's a regular woman, but it turns out she is an assassin of a incredible sort, and they adopt a little girl named Anya, who neither one of them realizes is a telepath. So the only one in this situation who knows that everyone involved is some sort of crazy off-the-wall character is Anya. She can read everyone's minds. And then they get a dog later on, and he could see the future. Lloyd, Lore, and Bond, none of them really know that each other is special, but Anya knows, and it's fantastic. It's very funny. It's very rambunctious and cute. Okay?
Hi.
Go on. Thank you. Spy Family is definitely a series for me. I know a lot of people don't like it. It is a bit... What can I say? It's not that it doesn't have a plot. It's kind of that it just keeps going, and there's not really a, like, strong meta plot through besides their day-to-day antics, but I think it's very fun. I enjoy it greatly. And I have 14 upstairs to read. I think 15 comes out in a couple weeks, so I'm almost caught up on this. Where did I put my other book? Oh, there it is. Okay, so after that, I finished a very dry nonfiction, Gossamer Years, Love, Passion, and Marriage in Old Japan, The Intimate Diary of a Female Courtier. This is fascinating just because of the setting and what it shows us, but it was kind of dry to read through. It is about a second wife to a courtier in the Heian period in Japan, and it kind of sheds a light on what that was like. Now, in this period, the women were very much confined to their homes in these big rows, at least the upper class were, and we kind of see that, and we see what that's like for them. Our narrator, our author of the diary here, she was also a poet, so we see a lot of poetry of the period, and it was fascinating but dry. I am going to keep it because the author of the diary is also like the aunt to the author, I think, of it was The Pillow Book, and there's a couple, she has ties to a lot of the other very famous historical fiction and nonfiction of the time, so it's good to read in concert with that. So I'm going to keep it, but I don't know that I would recommend it for like casual reading, right? Does that make sense? I think so. It was interesting for for the insight it gave on the history. I finished 4 more things. I'm telling you, I finished a lot of things. This is what happens. I'm not a monogamous reader. I read a lot of things at once. So I go through waves where I won't finish anything in a week, but I'll be reading 3 or 4 things, and then I'll finish a bunch of stuff rapid fire back to back to back, and then we end up with these stacks. So real quick, let's talk about the one I don't have a lot of thoughts on because I didn't like it and I'm going to get rid of it, and that is The Crown of War and Shadow. I finally finished this by J.R. Ward. This is going to the used bookstore. It was fine. It was fine. I was hoping for a lot more from J.R. Ward as far as this goes because I did like the Black Dagger Brotherhood as a teenager. This read like every other blank of blank and blank. You know, the romanticities where they all have the same title, they all have a lot of the similar tropes. This read like that, and I didn't. Absolutely Unputdownable by Jennifer L. Armentrout was the complete opposite of my experience. Like, I kept putting it down and I couldn't pick it back up. I was just like, very much a journey book. If you don't like journeys, the main character and Merc, the mercenary, are on a journey for a huge chunk of this. She has repressed memories, there's this whole chosen one thing, and it's just, I don't have much to say about it. I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. So I don't recommend it. On a similar genre, as far as fantasy romance, though, I did read and actually sought out and bought my own copy of Thistle Marsh by Maury Corrigan. Ouch. Thank you, sweetie. She's sitting down here with me. By Maury Corrigan. This was really great. So this is historical fairy fantasy, and it is about a young woman who goes by Mouse. She has just returned from the front lines of World War I. Now, in this version of England, the fairies once dwelt with us. Like, it's in the history books. There are paintings of them. They did great works. Like, it's fact that the fairies dwelt with man. And then they withdrew. They left mankind, and World War I kicked off, and she was a nurse on the front lines, and she lost a cousin. Her brother was badly injured. He is shell-shocked and doesn't remember things. He doesn't know who she is some days, things like that. She's returning to the home that they grew up on, the land, the manor house, because she is set to see what the inheritance is, and it finds out she is set to inherit the house, but there are stipulations. She has to restore it to its former glory or marry within the month. So she has to restore it in a month or marry. She's not going to marry, and so she's like, okay, I'll try to restore it. If she doesn't restore it, it goes to one of her distant cousins who is not a nice fella. And it is about her meeting a fairy a fairy comes into England for the first time in 100 years, and she meets him, and she makes a deal with him. And she's like, okay, if you'll help me restore this, I'll give you a thing. We'll make a deal. And it is that. This is very much a fantasy forward sort of fairy romantasy. So this is a story about her. This is a story about her and this fairy restoring this house. They kind of find out the magic behind it, the history behind it, and the history behind her family, and also possibly what happened with the fairy, why they left England, all of that. And it was delightful. I really, really enjoyed this. A lot of times I like the idea of historical, fairy style historical fantasy. I can't talk. But this really did it in a way that's not always done right for me, right? This one just worked, and I can't exactly tell you why, but I loved it. And I went out and, like I said, I bought my own copy because I will revisit this. I liked the magic in this, the feel of it, the fairy magic, and I liked how the fairies were shown, what it was like for bargains and that sort of stuff, and the characters were well drawn. I absolutely loved Mouse and Thornwood, and I really liked the history we wove into our characters, because there were a few side characters that we had as well that I liked. Micklewraith, and I think his name was John. Just really great little fantasy with a splash of romance. So I don't think I would call it a romantasy so much as I would call it just a fantasy with a romance and fairies in it. It's not like a fairy romance. The last two, I do believe, let me check. Spy Family, yes, so I have 2 more left. They are both Saga Press books. I'm doing a little bit of a vlog project with my Saga Press books. So the first one that I finished was an audiobook, and that was When We Were Real by Daryl Gregory. This is a quirky, almost cozy sci-fi. It is about a cast of people who go on this road trip across America. This is shortly after, in this world, this America finds out that they're part of a simulation. And having found that out, everybody is dealing with it in their own way, right? Some people are very pessimistic about it. Some people, it just shatters their whole life. I'm in a simulation. What good am I? Am I just X's and O's, sort of thing, ones and zeros? And we're looking at that as humanity, but we're also in this kind of storytelling setup like the Canterbury Tales, where we have these characters in these groups that are filling these roles. We have the reader, we have the octos, which are the octogenarians. It's a group of old folks on this tour. You have the podcaster, you have the influencer, right? It's very interesting. We learn their names, of course, and their stories, and we find out how they're all connected together and why they're doing what they're doing. And even though some of these characters are incredibly obnoxious, especially the influencer and the podcaster's son, they kind of grow on you once you give them time, because you're really seeing what is making them act the way they are, what's wrong with what they're thinking, how they feel about things that they've begun to act this way. Absolutely, such a lovely little book. I say little, it's not that little. I really enjoyed this. The audiobook on this was really good, but there were times where you could hear he had to go back and correct segments that he had spoken wrong. That's like my one big complaint, was the audiobook wasn't quite as seamless as I would have liked. But otherwise, I had a great time. There is like this overarching plot to it, right? The scientist is being pursued for whatever reason, and you're seeing how the bus riders, the people she's on this trip with, have to either come together to help her, or they have to come together to hinder her, and the choices they make and how they become together for whatever reason. I really liked it. I had a great time. It was a very cozy read, like I said, at times, as well as being a very enthralling. There was risk, and there was like some dark stuff happened at the end, especially some sad things happened, but it had a cozy feel till then. One of the characters says this isn't, like, they're aware of the fact, right, that this is almost like the Canterbury Tales, in the fact that the tour group they're on is called the Canterbury Trails, I believe. So there's a dash of the Oregon Trail in this too. So there's some people mess up and they get hurt, things like that. So it's like the Canterbury Tales meets the Oregon Trail meets speculative, quirky, cozy sci-fi. That's such a weird pitch, but it really worked. I promise it's good. I'm having a hard time summarizing. My daughter was just down here. I made her go upstairs, but it's thrown me off. Finally, the last thing I just finished last night is The Price of Redemption, Tides of Magic, Book 1 by Sean Carpenter. Oh my god. No, this isn't the last thing I finished. I'm sorry, there's one more. I'll talk about this and I'll talk about that. I was like, that doesn't seem right. I finished 2 things yesterday. The Price of Redemption. This is naval fantasy, but it is dense and wordy. If you know who Patrick O'Brian is, he wrote a series of classic naval books, historical, like, ships on the sea, not pirates, but, like, England facing off against the French and the Spanish and stuff. So you're thinking, like, this is the kind of language you would kind of feel in, like, classic novels. So Pride and Prejudice, it's big words, it's thick, it's dense, but it's fantasy with magic and stuff. My words today don't word. It is good. I do promise, though, it is good. I recommend reading this on audio, just because I believe the physical reading experience might be a little more dense and difficult, because when I tell you the big words in this, there were a few words I looked up. I felt a little silly. But yes, this is fantasy, a like historical style classic naval fantasy. There we go. And it's about Enid. And Enid is a marquise, and her homeland has currently going through a revolution. The lower class is overthrowing the aristocracy. They're overthrowing the upper class. And she has to flee. So she gets on this boat and she's being taken to a friendly nation. But her boat gets captured by said friendly nation as a prize, right? This is during the era where you could take different people's boats as prizes, especially if they were allies. And she is taken onto the Albion frigate, the Alarum, and she ends up becoming the Magister, the spell. They call her Spells. She's like the ship mage. And she takes up post there. She says, I'll help you if you'll take me to this other place. He's like, sure. But in that process, she becomes embroiled in this hunt for a legendary warship called the Redemption. That's the title. And they need to take it back. There is very little as far as like action in this goes. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of setup. It's a lot of interpersonal things. But the action that does happen, it's fantastic. We get ship battles. If you want to learn how a ship is run, these big warships were run, this is what you want to read. There's even an appendix in the back to tell you what parts of the ship are what a bowsman is, that sort of thing. Like, the people of the ship, their titles, it explains it. It's very good, though. I really liked it. There were times I was reading this. I remember distinctly at one point, I've been playing Story of Seasons on the PlayStation, which is just a farming game like Harvest Moon. I was reading this, and something was happening on page that I was listening to, and I like sat forward, and I was really intently staring at the screen, and my husband was like, what's wrong? And I was like, it's my book. Hush. It was great. It was just, I was really intent into the book, so I looked like I was intent into the game, but I was like picking squash, right? So, fantastic. The last 10% of this, I went through so many emotions. I went from rage, like incandescent rage, to joy, to like, oh no, just, oh, it was great. I really liked it, but it is dense. Fair warning. Dense, wordy, very classic historical feeling book, just, but so good. And finally, the book that I almost forgot about was The Mayor of Noobtown by Ryan Rimmel, which is the opposite in every way of The Price of Redemption. Mayor of Noobtown is about Jim. Jim gets hit by a truck. If you know the old isekai meme, truck coon is coming, you know, oh yay, gonna isekai me to another world. Jim gets hit by a truck and he ends up in another world. He goes through a little bit of a traumatic experience at first, and then he ends up in the woods with a tiny round demon that sits on his shoulder who does not want to be there, and Jim doesn't want him there, and yet they are stuck together. He names the little demon Shart. It tells you how much he enjoys the little guy. And he sets off to survive. This is not written fantastically, right? Okay, this is not like the best written thing ever. It's not the most like highbrow thing. This is just for the fun, right? This is a fun, vibey kind of read, and it's very lit RPG. If you are not going to enjoy stat blocks all the time, there's stat blocks all the time. You're not going to like it. They're very repetitive. If you are not okay with listening to him talk about skill trees over and over and over again, or how crafting works, this is probably a skip. But if you don't mind that, if you're very much the type of gamer who likes that sort of thing, like you like talking about skill trees and seeing stat blocks and seeing how things change and evolve, this is going to probably work for you. I am that type of person. I like to see stat blocks. I like to worry about skill trees. And I grew up reading the strategy guides of like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. And so I really love that. And this kind of felt very similar to that. And it's mainly just Jim and Shart. But we do get a few side characters who we've begun to be introduced to, but we don't get much about them. It's just him figuring out the world and how it works. And yeah, like I said, it's not like super in-depth. It's not super well written, but it is fun, and it is very lit in the lit RPG space, right? It's very much RPG. There we go. It's very much the RPG of lit RPG. So I had a great time. I had a great time with it, but it's not going to be for everybody. Just heads up. And that's it. That's everything that I finished. Now, I finished both of those yesterday, which means I haven't really started a whole lot right now. I don't have an audiobook going, but my next audiobook, I think, is going to be Red Winter by Miles Cameron. What I'm currently reading on ebook is Our Sister's Keeper. Hold on. My Kindle's a little off balance. There we go. My Sister's Keeper by Jasmine Holmes. I have this from Aardvark. My physical copy's upstairs, but I also have the e-arc. And then my physical book, which I haven't started yet, is going to be How to Survive Camping by Bonnie Quinn. This is the second one, The Lady in Chains. I absolutely loved the first one, so I have no doubt I will love this one as well. And that's everything that I have read and I am reading. I did get a couple of new arcs, including the next Singing Hills. It comes out next week, and I just got the arc for it, so I'm going to try to read it this weekend. No promises. I got a new manga from Viz called Links, which is about detectives and like a mystery case. It looks interesting. I was just happy to get something from Viz. I have been trying for years on NetGalley to have them give me e-arcs. They always decline me, but I still keep asking. But they finally approved this one, so we're going to try it. I think it sounds interesting. And let's see, what was the other one that I got just this morning, in fact, I think. Let's look and see, because I got the new Nevo, which I actually don't remember. It's called A Long and Speaking Silence. And then I was actually sent an email about Maisie Wood, which is Tanana Du's new horror novel. So I'm going to try to read that one sooner rather than later, because I'm afraid I'm going to put it off, and I don't want to do that. But that is it. That's the few e-arcs I got as well. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye. Ooh, I almost forgot. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I was reading for the Magical Readathon, and I did complete all of my courses. In case anyone was wondering, I did finish both Thread Mage and Wild Shape Druid. So I got two of them done. And this month I am taking part in, hold on, and I'll show you. I'm taking part in Escape, what's it called? Escape the Readathon. I am taking part in that, and I am on Team Astronomers. So if you're on Team Astronomers, or if you're taking part, there's my little page. Let me know. Let me know. I'm very excited. I gotta pick up a borrowed book for our first prompt. But yeah, anyway, okay. Bye.